Honkai Star Rail's been out for just over a year now, and as someone who's been playing it consistently throughout that 365-day duration and undoubtedly punched in hundreds of hours along the way, I think I'm qualified enough to take an honest look at this game through a critical lens and give it a review, judging its core gameplay, monetization system, the story up to patch 2.2 spoiler-free, and its setting to find out just how worthwhile Honkai Star Rail is as an experience a year in, at least in my opinion. The most important aspect of any game, for me personally, is without a doubt the gameplay. It's the big differentiator that sets apart a video game from any other form of media. Like a novel or a movie or a TV show, without gameplay, you don't really have a game. Plus, even if a game has a boring story and mediocre dialogue, guess what? You can skip it for the most part. The one piece of a video game you cannot skip ever is the game. So with its importance being stated, how enjoyable is Honkai Star Rail to play? Well, your enjoyment with the game is going to hinge on this. Do you like turn-based strategy RPGs? If you do, you'll probably enjoy the core gameplay loop of Honkai Star Rail. As a turn-based fanatic, I think this could very well be its best feature, so let's break down how it works. Every fight, despite having different enemies and sometimes different win conditions, all have a few traits in common. You have a team of 4 characters, and those 4 characters need to take the health of all enemies on the other side of the field down to 0. Each character has a basic attack that does a small amount of damage and recharges a skill point, a skill that can range from a stronger DPS attack to a supportive ability at the cost of skill points, and an ultimate ability that charges up over a set number of actions that, much like the skill, provides some supportive effect or does a truckload of damage to the enemy lineup depending on the character you're using. These enemies can range from waves of weaklings to one big huge beast-ass baller-ass boss, with putting together the right combination of characters or team composition for every fight being the key denominator as to whether you'll lose or win a match, and how efficiently that win's obtained. I love this prep-heavy style of gameplay, and it's super fun to test out different character combinations for yourself through trial and error. This is a bit of a niche pull, but it kind of reminds me of old school Warframe in this sense. Different characters excel at different mission types, and cycling between these different tools from level to level feels extremely rewarding when you've got the right builds in place. Which brings me to my first criticism of Star Rail's gameplay as a whole: the far too tedious process of building up your characters. The crucial design flaw with the power-up system in Star Rail is time. It takes way too damn much of it, but it's a specific type of time. Inactive time. Waiting and waiting and waiting. Look, I get it. Plenty of grinds in games, especially MMOs, take time to wrap up. Conjure up a thought bubble with me here for a second. There's a tough boss or tough dungeon you need to farm repeatedly to get some amazing item or gear set that's going to take your character's build to the next level. This can take hours of playtime, days, weeks, rummaging through the same draw pool over and over until one run, when you've given up nearly all hope, it appears. That item you've been looking for, the prince that was promised, after hours and hours of degenerate gaming, you haven't just gotten it, you've earned it. This is the result of active grinding, and the dopamine hit is unreal. Beating a tough boss or a difficult dungeon over and over to work for this reward is one of the most euphoric feelings you can have in gaming. Star Rail's grinding fails to replicate this system or evoke that dopamine high in any way. And here's where I think it goes wrong. Firstly, once you've got 1 or 2 good teams built up, there's no material or gear grind in the game that feels remotely challenging. And while there's still some fun to be had in optimizing them to be over as quickly as possible, they never shake the feeling of being chores. And much like chores, you can't just get them all over within a day and be done with them forever. Nope. Almost every resource grind in the game is locked behind the finite currency of Trailblaze power. You get 240 of it a day, and outside of rarely obtained items to replenish this stuff, it only recharges with time, which means your grinds can't be done degenerately in one day. It can take weeks to sometimes over a month to get a character built up and ready for endgame content without monetary intervention. And that's almost certainly by design. Honkai Star Rail and its systems are largely designed around getting you to log in for a short session every day so they can milk your fixation on the game for as long as possible. This, without doubt, is detrimental to the player experience. When you get a new character, you want to build him immediately. That's how our brains work. I can't tell you the number of times I've pulled a sparkling new character from a banner after setting a month's worth of summoning tickets aside just for them, only to be stuck waiting over a week before they have any actual use, since I didn't have enough resources pre-farmed to build them. And I know what the rebuttal to this is. Oh, if you pre-farmed all the materials for the characters you wanted, you'd be able to enjoy them immediately. I get that, I do, but I still gotta build the characters I already have, man. And the rate that new banners get churned out in this game is hypersonic. There's almost always something new to build, which on its own is great, don't get me wrong. It's just hard to keep up with when you're only granted a fixed amount of resources per day. However, if you are a degenerate gaming gremlin who takes double-digit steps in a day like me, there are several game modes for you that you can grind away to your little heart's content. The Simulated Universe, the Forgotten Hall, and Pure Fiction. Let's start with the first one of these modes you gain access to, the Simulated Universe. Simulated Universe is Star Rail's variant of the get random wacky buffs throughout a multi-fight run and watch chaos ensue kind of game mode, and it's well done here. It houses 9 different different worlds, 7 of which have 4 increasingly difficult stages. What's sick about this is that those 7 worlds all have an equal degree of difficulty, just with different enemies sprinkled throughout. So if you're struggling with one stage, you can just hop to another one and give your team comp a shot against a new set of elites with potentially better luck. Again, the core gameplay of Honkai Star Rail is fun, and the simulated universe takes that gameplay and gives you a huge amount of content to scull alongside the main story. It rarely leaves you completely stuck in progression. However, you can only gain so many free rewards from the simulated universe a week. See, the simulated universe has its own unique relic system that drops subsets, an additional 2-piece set of relics that can grant your characters more bonuses. You get 4 of what are called immersifiers a week from playing through the simulated universe, which is not a lot since each one is only good for 1 round of gear drops. There's 2 other game modes within the simulated universe, Golden Gears and Swarm Disaster, have a whole different set of rules while still maintaining the power-up system of the original simulated universe. There's a whole lot of gameplay there too. I still haven't beaten either of them in their entirety, but each one possesses boatloads of enjoyable, albeit sometimes a bit tedious content coded in. Moving on to the Forgotten Hall, the mode that acts as Star Rail's true endgame challenge content in my experience. In most nodes of the Forgotten Hall, you have to take down 2 different fights with 2 different teams, and the fights themselves are split into 2 categories. There's the regular branches of it, memories that host weaker, lower level enemies. You're meant to tackle these as you progress throughout the game, and they serve the purpose of benchmarking your progress well enough. Memories of Chaos, on the other hand, are the truly devious endgame stages. Beating the latter few levels of Memories of Chaos is probably the hardest content Star Rail has to offer, aside from maybe Conundrum difficulty Golden Gears, not just because these fights can be ruthlessly difficult to beat, but because they have to be bested within a certain number of turns to get the maximum rewards. If you finish with 20 turns left over, you get 3 stars, with 10 turns left over, you get 2, and just managing to squeak across the finish line nets you 1. I've never been able to fully 3-star a full 12-stage Memory of Chaos, and I've spent hundreds of hours on this game, so think of it as a big juicy end goal for your account to work towards. Also, these 12 stages refresh after a certain period of time, so even if you do beat all of them, there will still be new endgame content to sink your teeth into once that refresh hits. Lastly, we've got the Enemy Blitz game mode of Pure Fiction. Pure Fiction plays differently from the 2 prior explained game modes in that the emphasis is heavily focused on speed. The enemies aren't tough, but there's a lot of them on the field at once, and you have a set number of turns to kill as many as possible, with each life claimed contributing slightly to your overall score for the level. Erudition characters that focus purely on large AoE damage work best here. That does a great job as a game mode of giving previously less useful characters a chance to shine, and you can get loads of rewards from fast completions. Pure Fiction works wonders as a side mode for me because it spins everything you know about team compositions a bit out of whack. Normally you'd want a sustain character, 1 or 2 buffers or sub DPS, and a main carry DPS in some kind of combination. When it comes to Pure Fiction, it's not uncommon to see comps with 2 Erudition carries and no supports. It's a fun mode to figure out and build characters for. All 3 of these game modes have their own unique identity and add a lot to the game from both a balancing and content perspective. Nothing but compliments here as long as you have the right characters. Wait, how do I get the right characters? Okay, let's just rip this band-aid off right now.
Let me get this straight. You took all the money you made franchising your name and bet it against the Harlem Globetrotters?
I thought the generals were due!
The biggest turnoff of Honkai Star Rail, besides the generationally unhinged Google ads, is without a doubt the gacha game format. The main method of obtaining new characters in this game is summoning them. If you're new to the concept, think of it like those little machines they have in dingy pizza restaurants that you put a quarter into in exchange for a capsule containing a random temporary tattoo or something, except instead of those, it's video game characters and weapons of different rarities and strengths. The odds of getting a 5-star character at the highest level in both rarity and strength is 0.6% for the first 74 pulls until it becomes more forgiving. That's a lot of summons, man, and while you're able to get loads of Stellar Jades, the currency used to transfer into the Express Passes, which in turn are used to summon characters, this supply dwindles substantially for free-to-play players the further you progress through the game. What exacerbates this problem further is that most 5-star characters in Honkai Star Rail are limited. They have a runtime of a little less than a month and don't come back for months afterwards. So if there's a specific character you're interested in on a limited time banner and the in-game coffers are looking dry, better luck in 6 months, pal. Get to the back of the line like the rest of us. I'm not gonna bash the gacha system and its core too much more here. Most gacha games have very similar summoning systems, and my gripes with the format aren't unique to Star Rail. Besides, scrambling and grinding out enough pulls for a limited character to try and beat the metaphorical buzzer of their banner ending is a fun gaming experience, all things considered. Plus, you can snag most of the characters you want for free if you're fiscally savvy with your in-game currencies and play consistently. The base game is free at least, and it's by no means the most money-grubbing gambling system I've seen in gaming, although it's up there. I've got a pretty atrocious net worth anyways, so I don't have the temptation to shell some cash out. We call that a silver lining for being sorry as hell. But if my wallet did have something resembling a US dollar in it, then maybe maybe had some semblance of purchasing power. How much bang for my buck can I get by throwing some metaphorical bread around at the in-game shop? Let's take a look at the deals here to see how egregious some of this shop pricing is and what options are worth the indulgence, if any of them are. So looking at the flat dollar per Oniric shards exchange rate, 99 cents gets you 60 of these bad boys. Okay, I gotta break down the straight debauchery that was this sentence you just heard, because that right there is some 90s cartoon mustache twirling evil villain shit. Oniric shards exist, from my understanding, simply to do one thing: obfuscate the price of what you're getting at a first glance. See, these shards are converted into stellar jades at a 1-to-1 exchange rate, meaning they're literally the same currency as stellar jades. But why are these what you purchase with real money instead of stellar jades? As far as I can tell, to confuse impulsive buyers who don't do their research into not knowing how much bang they're getting with their buck. And that's not even mentioning the stellar jade to dollar conversion rate. 60 Oniric shards, which we've already established are stellar jades with those fake mustache glasses and a top hat on, are $1. That's $2.67, or $3 realistically, for one summon. And how many summons does it take until the pity system starts working its magic again? 74? That's damn near $200 for one guaranteed limited 5-star character in a video game. I used to buy DS games as a kid, whole games, for $30 to $40. That summon pricing is highway robbery, and blatant ripoffs like this are why gacha games at large get such a bad rap from the greater gaming community, because quite frankly, this should be scrutinized to some extent in my opinion. The only deal even worth looking at is the monthly pass. This gives you 18 summons drip fed to your account over the course of a month for $5. The catch to this though is that you have to log in every single one of those 30 days to get what you pay for, and there's no compensation system if you miss a day or two. They do warn you about this ahead of time, so I'd say it's honestly a reasonable transaction, maybe the only reasonable one aside from the battle pass. Wait, did he just say the battle pass? The battle pass! Just this phrase alone is enough to send millions of gamers worldwide into a fit of cookie crumb fling and rage. Me personally, I'm down for a battle pass as long as it's reasonable, although let's remember, what's considered reasonable is somewhat subjective, as is the weight we all give in-game items and characters, so take my opinion, along with my prior rant about monetization, for what it is. An opinion. Anyways, the Star Rail Battle Pass nets you about 8 extra summons along with a truckload of resources for upgrading characters and weapons. Plus, it grants you a 4-star weapon picked out from a limited supply pool that costs around $10 US. Again, this is a battle pass. You have to play the game to get these rewards. Whether that price point is worth it is entirely up to the player. I bought a couple of battle passes in my day and subsequently maxed them out. Keep in mind though, you need to play a pretty substantial amount of hours to complete this pass and get your maximum money's worth. That sounds like the name of a billionaire from a cartoon who may be the only person to consider the Supreme Battle Pass for $20 a worthwhile investment. You get a few extra passes and cosmetics here along with 10 extra battle pass levels, but that's about it. I've never bought this one and never will, but whether you think it's worth your hard-earned cash is up to you. If you got the money flowing and there's a limited battle pass exclusive cosmetic that you want, don't let a broke college dropout on the internet stop you from achieving your dreams. Do what you want with your money. The story thus far in Honkai Star Rail has been interesting. And I don't mean that in the it's bad but I'm being polite way. It's just got some weird pacing with quality peaks and valleys. And in my opinion, it's hard to blame the writing staff entirely for this, because writing for a live service gacha game with constant story updates has got to be hard and limiting. I want you to imagine with me again here. Imagine you're on the writing team for an upcoming arc of Honkai Star Rail. You've got your setting for this new story arc planned out. You got a rough outline put together in the old noodle, threaded in this plot and its characters together. Oh, but you got to split it up into 3 or more acts so players stay active waiting for the next content drop. Oh, and each individual act has to end in a sharp emotional climax or a jaw-dropping cliffhanger. Again, so people are on the edge of their seat for the next chapter. Oh, and also this character needs more dialogue. You can't flesh this character out too much longer. You're not going to fit all this dialogue in here. There's just not enough time. There's story each of it in 3 or 4 parts, or you're fired! You see where I'm coming from here? Live service games driven by money spent on a never-ending conveyor belt of new characters have a lot of hurdles in front of them when it comes to writing a compelling and emotional narrative. Because what oftentimes drives a memorable and powerful story? The characters! It's hard to develop a main cast of characters when they're always battling for screen time against an unlimited funnel of new ones. And even these new ones are tough to write because, guess what? Most of them have less than a few paltry hours of screen time to make us invested in them. An unbelievably short amount of time for the game to tell their stories and give the audience a reason to care. The latest patch to drop during the production of this video, for example, patch 2.1, was by far my favorite story patch yet. It centered predominantly around one character, told his story, and made us invested in him, his goals, and his outcomes because of what? Time. This patch spent loads of time on this one character and it worked. I'm hoping this is a good sign for future story patches to come, because if chapters like these become the rule as opposed to the exception, I'm gonna have a blast playing through every single one. Also, I think the voice actors in this game deserve a heap of praise. I've been consistently impressed with maybe every VA performance we've had. They do a wonderful job bringing this game to life. The story of Honkai Star Rail, while inconsistent, has still been a collectively enjoyable experience for me, and this in part is thanks to its strong setting. I'll admit this up front, I'm not a veteran reader of the sci-fi genre by any stretch, so I can't tell if parts of the lore or the power system are commonly played out tropes, but man, do I love it. Eons, emanators, factions, a sprawling, never-ending universe housing an infinite amount of potential unique locations for the story to visit. This setting is so fun to sink my lorehead teeth into. I literally got myself awake at night reading wiki articles on random gods named the Eons in this game, as well as their alleged origin stories and following factions. The best feature of an outer space planet to planet setting like this is that you can cram a million smaller settings into one. For example, let's look briefly at the 3 worlds we've experienced thus far. Eurillo 6, a backwater, technologically primitive land on the brink of an apocalyptic Arctic tundra swallowing them whole. There's an overworld where the richer, well-connected Nepo babies live, and an underworld where those forced below struggle to survive their day-to-day and can barely scrounge up necessary food and resources. These 2 culturally separate civilizations, as you can probably guess, have some differences, but I'm not here to spoil the fun for you. The Xianzhou Alliance, the hexafleet of sprawling cities located entirely on 6 massive spaceships heavily inspired by Chinese culture. All 6 ships constituting this alliance are united under their complete and utter devotion to the Eon Lan and his Path of the Hunt. Pathstriders following the Path of the Hunt have one overarching goal in mind: exterminating the Eon of Abundance, Xiaoxi, and all who have received her poisonous blessings. Needless to say, an empire following the Path of the Hunt has military traditions ingrained within its day-to-day life, leaving several massive military branches constantly on alert and a citizenry with their lifespan reaching hundreds of years, never too far removed from emergency. Penacony, a world directly blessed by Zepe the Ion of Harmony, is pretty much the equivalent of a space Disney World split into 2 explorable portions. The Reverie, a sprawling luxury hotel existing in the real world, and the Dreamscape, where all the theme park festivities are located in a bubble-based network of dreams. However, much like most major corporations, the bright, cheery dream world itself takes a backseat to dark secrets, political infighting, and multiple different factions scheming in the background to realize their differing agendas. This storyline is yet to be concluded, so I can't share too much, and likewise, we don't know everything this too perfect planet has yet to offer us. I could write individual video essays about this shit. It's a setting that's creative and easy to get lost in. The lore itself is maybe the single greatest trait of Honkai Star Rail. I eat this type of detailed setting up. So combining all these aforementioned aspects, the pros, cons, peaks, and valleys, how good is Star Rail overall? Or I guess a better question to ask is, what is Honkai Star Rail as a game? Well, if you ask me, I think it's a perfect representation of how far mobile gaming has come over the last decade or so, for better or worse. I grew up with mobile games like Angry Birds, Temple Run, Fruit Ninja, games that embody the phrase time waster in just about every sense. They're fun, menial little games that existed solely to kill time. It's hard to believe that nowadays there are mobile games like Star Rail that play and feel like a AAA developer experience, with fun, addictive gameplay, an overall wonderful story for a video game, along with a setting and characters that rival some of the better in the industry from my experience. Honkai Star Rail isn't just a time waster or good for a mobile game, it's just good, and I think it'll be remembered as a title that pushed the mobile gaming genre forward to its next evolutionary stage. Hey, how's it going? If you enjoyed this video, maybe try watching one of my other ones, like this bad boy here. Or follow me on Twitch if you're interested. It might not be Star Rail centric, but it's worth checking out if you liked my vibe.